Hey, everybody, I'm Mary Gardner, and welcome to Masters of Leadership, where we speak with leaders around the country who are doing great things. And today I'm talking to Rebecca Sposita, who is the president of the Sam Bernstein Law Firm in Detroit. And Rebecca has a new book coming out, Win-Win, helping organizations mitigate legal risks for the common good. Rebecca, thank you so much for being with me today. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Mary, thank you so much for having me here. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to talk just first of all, having you as president of your law firm, that's quite a feat. Could you kind of give me a little background about how you got into that position and when you took over and things like that?
Sure. So I started out my legal career doing medical malpractice litigation for a firm. And then I transitioned after a few years of doing that to having my own practice. And I found that having my own practice was really fulfilling and rewarding. However, I really sought out having a larger organization to work with. And so I then joined my firm about 15 years ago as the director of the disability department and have since moved up through the ranks. I moved on to a chief operating officer role, then a chief legal officer role, and about 2.5 years ago, I became the president of the firm.
That's amazing. Congratulations. And share with me a little bit about your firm and some of the qualities that you love about working there.
Absolutely. Sam Bernstein Law is a large personal injury law firm in the Detroit area. We've been around for over 50 years, very well-known brand in the area. And it's just an amazing place to be. I'm surrounded by fantastic professionals, litigators, support staff, and the owners of the firm are tremendous. So I'm very blessed to be there.
That's so awesome. So congratulations on all of that success. Now, I know that you've got a new book coming out, Win-Win, and an accompaniment workbook that goes along with it. Can you give me an overview of your book and the workbook?
Absolutely. The book Win-Win is about helping organizations learn how to handle complaints in a way that will save them money and save them reputational damage, but all doing so while not re-traumatizing individuals that have to come forward. It's very difficult when people have to come forward with complaints, and the process itself is very difficult for them. And so there's a secondary trauma that happens, almost a betrayal effect that goes on when somebody has to come forward and bring a complaint forward because they're already going through a lot of difficulty with whatever the underlying issue is. And then when coming forward, being met with sometimes aggression and denying and lack of accountability. And so the book really shows institutions how those approaches that they've been traditionally taking really backfire against them and cause more harm than good in the long run.
Wow, that's really important, that re-traumatization. And I could see a person who had gone through something very difficult having to talk about it all over again. And I know that you've been involved with some high profile cases. I know that you were involved with the Dr. Larry Nassar case. Did you see any of that re-traumatization when you were working with any of the gymnasts, the US gymnasts?
Absolutely. The underlying issues there were just horrendous, as everyone knows. And so working with these young women, mostly gymnasts, but not all, really gave me a firsthand view of how difficult it is just to go through the process after going through an event like that. It's really difficult for people, even just to have conversations with me as their attorney. That was hard enough as it was, let alone being met with an aggressive, defensive posture and a lack of accountability.
Well, you would think that that is why people hire a lawyer, is to protect the person. Is that currently happening, or what's the MO that's happening right now in the world of law and or even in a company? How do they handle, I guess, accusations right now?
I think traditionally companies have been instructed by their counsel not to admit when things have gone wrong for fear that they will have to pay extraordinary amounts in damages and could ruin their reputation. And what we find and what I find as a plaintiff's lawyer, and actually as somebody who has been through a reporting process myself most recently, is that not only do those things not help, in fact, they harm the efforts of the company to get a good result and to prevent further instances of harm from happening.
And ultimately, that's what people want, is to stop that behavior from happening again. Can you give an example of when a company did poorly and they did not communicate effectively and the result? And then we'll do one where they did do it correctly.
Sadly, I can give many examples of when a company handled it poorly. And it's most of the cases that I've worked on, frankly, in my lifetime. Medical malpractice comes to mind first. We already spoke about the sexual assault cases with Larry Nassar. But medical malpractice cases, I mean, you have young mothers that are coming forward after they have a really difficult delivery and something's wrong with the baby, and just the litigation process that happens with an attorney being aggressive and insurance companies uh, instructing their insureds not to settle a case and not to admit any liability. The examples of this are countless. On the flip side, I do have one example in particular that's coming to mind of an organization, a construction company that I know of that had a young man who was killed on a job site in a construction accident and with a piece of equipment. And the owners of the company were instructed not to speak to the family and not to come forward, and they went against the instructions of their own attorney and actually went to the young widow's house, and she had small children, and spent the day with her and talked to her and, expressed their sympathies and asked her what it was that she needed. And she asked them simply to set up a college fund for each of her young sons who would now grow up without their father. And, among other things, and this company agreed to do several things, but the point was that they expressed their empathy. They showed up for her. They expressed sympathies and talked to her about what she needed. And ultimately, she was able to get some closure and get what she needed. And the company was able to do this for her, instead of what could have been a many years lawsuit and putting that woman and her children through more difficulty than they've already been through.
Wow, it sounds like you're bringing some heart back into the legal field and to companies. Tell me what some of the practical advice that you could give to some small businesses based on the content of your book and workbook, Win-Win.
So there are really simple principles contained in the book and the workbook, such as transparency and accountability, and building those type of principles into already existing frameworks. It's not asking to do a complete overhaul or requiring thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to do these things. It's really simple efforts that are more aligned with who we actually are as people, right? Operating with integrity and being accountable when we've done something that requires us to acknowledge that. And in doing so, you're helping people not be re-traumatized through this process, but you're also helping your organization by fixing problems that exist so that they don't continue to surface in other ways. You mentioned the Larry Nassar case before. Had the issue been addressed that was, causing all of this problems 20 years ago, many more women would not have been assaulted and re-traumatized through that process. So the goal here is really to teach institutions how to handle these things properly and humanely in a way to prevent further damage from happening and to really improve their business.
And that would make such an impact for a small business if they were going to be sued for a behavior that one of their employees did. They could be wiped off the map. So I could see this really being so beneficial. If a lawyer is giving the old advice of not to be able to communicate with or to be able to talk about it or admit fault, how does a person approach their lawyer? Do they just go ahead and, like in your case that you heard about, go ahead and just avoid the case of the lawyer? Do they have a conversation with the lawyer? How do you recommend that people and companies handle that conflict?
Well, I certainly would not advocate for people to be just disregarding their attorney's legal advice. So first and foremost, I mean, speak to the attorney and talk to them about what your interests are as well. And so, I mean, I think the main point of this is really to look at, if you take a look at every complaint that comes through as an opportunity to improve your organization and do better work for your employees and for the people that you serve in the community, that is really what the goal of this book is to do.
Mhm. I love it. It really does. I said it before, but it sounds like you're bringing heart and conscience into the legal field and into organizations, and it would be better for everybody overall and probably save money. One last thought for small businesses, any advice that you have for them in this risk of having behavior or something that goes awry? What can they do to start a new process and a new culture of doing the right thing?
I think that if you just focus on learning a little bit more about the psychological effects that go into coming forward to bringing a complaint. And so you there can see people when they come forward to you, bringing you a complaint as somebody who's been through a really traumatic thing and wants to tell you about it because they think that you want to know, because it's your organization and that you want to fix the problem. I think that the first step is really looking at those complaints when they come forward in a different way, changing your mindset on, instead of trying to deny and act defensively and, defend your position, really listen to what they're saying. Think about what's happening in your organization and think about ways that you can improve all the little things that people may come forward about, little or big. It really can make a huge impact on your organization.
Amen. I love that. And having accountability. So that means internally with a company, a small company or a large company, starting to have conversations about these things. Rebecca, thank you so much for your being with us today. Congratulations on your book. It sounds like it's going to really change the way things have been in the past with both the legal field and both with corporations and with companies to only protect themselves, but to open up and to really be a partner with whatever the situation is, to do the right thing, to listen, to understand that trauma, it could be re-traumatized again, and they don't want to do that. It's I think overall what you're doing is great for everybody. It's again, it's win-win, and the book can be found at RebeccaSposita.com or winwinthebook.com. Rebecca, thank you so much for participating with me today. Appreciate your time.
Mary, thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate you helping me get the message out about win-win.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.